you kind of have to have an idea of how long it's going to take you to study for this certification, for this exam.
Self-imposed or otherwise.
Yeah, and every exam is different, and there's a different level of difficulty to each. And so some are going to be easier than others, and some are going to be harder than others. That's just kind of the nature of it. But what it's your job to do is in the beginning is kind of find a reference point of how long it should take you to complete this exam. And how are you going to do that? Okay, so one of the easiest ways to do it is a lot of these exams kind of give you a rough guideline and an outline of how long it takes you to study for it. The reason why a lot of these exams at least give you an outline of it is because they want you to pass it. They want you to pay to take it, and they want you to pass it.
If you're looking at tech certifications especially, most of them have a time estimate attached to them, if not all. They are time boxed because they've measured out how long it would take the average person to complete different modules or different pathways in their tech pathways, right? So Salesforce or Microsoft Azure, it'll tell you how long. Even if you do like any of the Grow with Google certifications, it'll tell you it takes, the average person passes this in 3 months. But what I'll say, and maybe the average person does, but from what I've seen from our TikTok audience and just in general, I would say that the motivated average person, it takes about a month or so or less. A lot of people are passing these certifications within 45 days because they're just buckling down and making the time to study. And I think there is a direct correlation in how much you prioritize that time and that study habit and how quickly you can achieve the certification, regardless of like how technical you are or how good of a student you are. And I'm basing that partially too on my experience, which I was neither of those things. And I did it in 30 days and 31 days. And I'm like, if I can do that, anybody can do this. Anybody can do this.
Yeah, definitely.
And you saw it up close too. It was like, yeah, if I can do this, anybody can.
Yeah, and like I said, it depends on how difficult the exams are, but generally speaking, what I was going to say next was that the advertised time is usually a lot more than what you need. If it says 6 months, you might be able to do it in a month. Mm-hmm. You might be able to do it in 2 months. And another resource that is super helpful is Reddit. You and I are always on and on about Reddit, but there are a lot of different subreddits and different communities in there where you can find support and ask questions about specific certifications and exams that you're taking. These subreddits have very detailed explanations of how these people passed and studied for their exam, and they're just trying to pay it forward to the community that helped them. And so, yeah, like I said, if to get a better real world time frame, Facebook groups and subreddits are definitely the place to go to look for.
Absolutely. And I think one question that I get most frequently about Reddit is how do I find things on Reddit? And I'm about to tell you, and it really is this simple. It's Google your question. And I mean, how can I pass the CISSP exam? And then the word Reddit at the end of it. It is that simple. And it will show you different subreddits where it's being talked about. So in the results, go click on all of them, read like 2 to 3 pages deep in Google, and you will find people who are doing exactly what you're doing on there. And a lot of people are like, how do I that's how. Google what you're doing and then the word Reddit at the end of the phrase, and it will show you where to go. It'll show you what to read and different resources. And that's how you find those subreddits. That's how you find them. You don't necessarily have to go in Reddit and look it up. Use Google, ask the question, because also if you're taking a specific certification, the things that might pop up around that also might be valuable to you too. The other search results in that specific question.
And then the last thing that I like to do at this point, before we get into the actual study habits, is I like to schedule the test. And that is just so that we give ourselves a timeline. And it's a self-imposed due date that we have to abide by now. And a lot of these tests, they have reschedule like parameters. You can reschedule before 48 hours. So if something comes up, you can reschedule it. That being said, at least you have something in your date book that says, okay, I'm going to get this done. And now the clock is ticking and you have to study for it.
Self-imposed deadlines when you are being a self-study student are absolutely necessary. You need them because otherwise there's no goal. And whether you're goal-oriented or not, and I'm not really a goal-oriented person, but I needed that test scheduled to really kick it into gear. And I think a lot of people do, especially if you're not used to having I have to get this done by this date because this thing is going to happen and that's why it has to be done. And having a time limit of, okay, well, this has to be done by this time is really, really useful if you're trying to motivate yourself to study for something.